In the sprawling web of marketing, market analysis might be the foundation, but who you market to is the next big piece to focus on. Let's gather some effective marketing lists, and may the best list win.
Lists are important, but it is much more than that. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 marketing lists and how to find them, so you can use them to start finding great deals. And we start right now. Hey there, friends. My name is Anson Young, and I am a real estate investor and agent. I do fix and flips and wholesales here in Denver, Colorado. And I'm also the author of Finding and Funding Great Deals out through BiggerPockets, our friends. So nice. Yeah. If you want to dive deeper, at the end of this video, I'm going to leave a promo code for 20% off at the BiggerPockets bookstore for the book, Finding and Funding Great Deals. Since you're watching BiggerPockets on YouTube right now, be sure to leave them a like, subscribe, leave a comment. They would certainly appreciate it, and so would I. Don't forget to stick around to the end of this episode, where I'll also be leaving action tips, because what's the point of all of this information if you aren't taking action on it? So stick around, take action. Action. Before we dive in, I want to explain just a little bit of how this video interconnects with all of the other videos in the Finding Great Deals series. See? Not just one, they all build on each other. Today we're talking about marketing lists, which of course is used for marketing. This information ties into future episodes and past episodes. We're going to take our market analysis from episode 1, and that is where to market. And we're going to smash it together today with marketing lists, which is who to market to. And in future episodes, we're going to be talking about how to market and what to send for your marketing. We are targeting sellers who most likely need to sell, so they can sell to us so that we can help them. That is the big why. So we could send marketing to every single house in the whole city, which would be a lot and very expensive. Instead, we want to pick out those who are most likely needing to sell, and we just target them, right? Right. Here is a pro tip. The harder a list is to get, the less competition you will have marketing to that list. Also, the smaller niche list will have less competition in general. Let's get into it. For each list, I'm going to talk about them using the following 4 categories. 1 is cost. How much will this list cost? Some are free and some are very expensive. Where to find the list? Of course, you have to know where to go, what website to go to, who to talk to, all that good stuff. Difficulty. This is how difficult it is to actually get the list. Is it going to be easy or is it going to be extremely hard? And finally, the competition level. How many of your fellow investors in your city have access to this list? And how many of them are going to be marketing to the same people that you are marketing to? The first list is driving for dollars. This is a list that I'm going to do an entire masterclass on in episode 4. In a quick nutshell, driving for dollars is getting in your car and driving every street in a neighborhood that you are interested in investing in. You're getting your eyeballs directly on every single house. You're going to look for deferred maintenance. You're going to look for torn down shutters. You're going to look for signs that it is a house that fits your criteria. The cost of this list is free. Basically, well, not free. I guess you have gas and you have your time. Your time's worth something, right? But you're not paying a service provider to get this list for you. Although if you're like me, you do pay somebody to actually do the driving for dollars. Where you find this list is you. You get in your car, you go drive the streets, and you find the houses. Or somebody that you hire. You're in charge. For difficulty, I'm going to give this 3. What do we decide? 3. I'm going to give this a difficulty of 3 out of 5. It's not rocket science, but it does take effort. And for every hour that you're in the car, you might find 1 or 2 houses, or you might find 100, depending on your area. So if you're looking to instantly download 1,000 driving for dollars houses from the internet, you're out of luck. You have to go put in the work. For competition level, I'm going to give this a 1 out of 5. There is less competition on these lists because your competition may not want to get in the car, go drive every street, and put in the actual physical work, which of course benefits you. Half of your competition might be across town and have no interest in investing in the suburb that you're looking at. So that eliminates those guys and gals. The next list is the free and clear list. Free and clear literally means that the property is free and clear of any mortgages. It's already been paid off, or they paid cash to start with. Obviously, they have a very large equity position, so there's a lot of room to make a deal if a property has no mortgage on it. The cost of this list, I'm going to give 2 out of 5 because it does cost a little bit of money. It's going to be between 3 cents to 20 cents per name that you're going to pull down from the internet, which brings me to where to find it. Well, the easiest place is listsource.com, which I'm going to be saying out of my mouth a lot today. So bear with me. But I'm going to go show you how to do that real quick.
When creating a list in ListSource, we always start with the Geography tab. This is where we are telling it to pull the list from, what area. So here I'm going to pull down my 5 favorite zip codes from episode 1, which these are the hottest ones in town. So I add those zip codes and I move on to the next phase. Now I go to the Property tab, and from there I go to Equity Percentage in the drop-down menu. It may not show it on the screen, but that's what I'm doing. So now I'm going to enter in 100% to 100% here in this box and click Add. And this will filter out any properties that aren't 100% free and clear, 100% equity, and you can see how far down that dropped our numbers there on the left.
The difficulty of this list, I'm going to give 1 out of 5, which means anybody with an internet connection can actually go into your city and download this list. I can do it from where I'm at. I can do it from across the world. I can do it from the middle of the desert with Starlink satellites giving me internet access. I could do it from Antarctica. Anywhere they have internet, I could be your competition. Which brings me to the competition level, which is going to be a 5 out of 5 stars. This is one of the first lists that the gurus, everyone and their mom talks about going and finding. So be prepared to run into a lot of your fellow investors in town. Next list is the high equity list. This is very, very similar to the free and clear list in a lot of ways, but this just means that they have between 100% equity and let's just say 30% equity. It's going to depend on your business model, how much room you're looking for in the deal. So that's a you choice. And again, like the free and clear, the more room that there is with equity, the more room there is for you to craft a deal with the seller. Where to find this list? You're going to find it on listsource.com. This video is not sponsored by listsource.com, I promise. It's just a very good place to find lists. In fact, ListSource is owned by CoreLogic, which owns a lot of the back end for title companies and MLS systems. So it's just a good place to find information you're looking for. I'm going to show you how to do that.
Our Geography tab's already loaded, so we go straight to the Property tab. We drop down our equity percentage, and here we're going to put in 30 to 100% and then click Add. And now this is all the high equity properties in our zip codes.
And again, the difficulty is very easy. I'm going to give this 1 out of 5, which means your competition level is going to be very high. This is a 5 out of 5. They say, give me your money. I'm going to tell you how to invest. Go get the high equity list. Our next list is absentee list. Absentee means that the homeowner does not live in the property. This could be an abandoned house. This could be a rental. This could be a house that they lived in for years, then they moved out and let their cousin Jim live in for 20 more years. As long as they registered their address as separate from the property address, it should show up as an absentee owned property. Why would you market to absentee properties? Well, it's pretty simple. If they live 1,000 miles away, the property might become a problem for them to own, and you might solve that problem. Pretty easy, right? The cost here is going to be the same as free and clear and high equity because we're getting it from the same source. Speaking of which, we're going to go to the computer and go to ListSource, and I'm going to show you real quick how to find this.
With our zip codes already loaded, we're going to go all the way over to options. We're going to select absentee owned. From here, you can see we can choose in-state or out-of-state or both.
So this is a close cousin with high equity because the list that people tell you to go grab is the high equity list, the free and clear list, and the absentee list. And the good part is that you can actually combine these lists to find the absentee high equity or the absentee free and clear. Because when you stack those factors, the more likely you're going to have that they need some sort of help eventually. Without beating a dead horse, the difficulty is very low, just like the last list, and the competition level is very high. Hey guys, I was going through this video and I realized I left something out. So I'm inserting it right here. So basically when it comes to list source, this is not the end all be all definitive step-by-step nitty gritty guide to everything to do with these lists, because inside list source, there's easily hundreds of different variables that you could use. You want to pay attention to how long someone's owned the property, what type of property that it is, and a bunch of other factors. So I might come back to this topic at another time to do an in-depth guide to pulling lists from list source and all the different things that you want to consider. But for now, just know that this is kind of an overview, not meant to be the end all be all. The second thing is I want to know what your favorite marketing lists are. So if you can type them down in the comments, that would be amazing. Sharing is caring, and I totally want to steal all of your lists. Oh, is this thing still on? Oh crap. Our next list is the pre-foreclosure list. Pre-foreclosure means that this is before the homeowners go into a foreclosure situation. The bank has declared foreclosure, but they haven't gone to the auction process yet. Most homeowners have 4 months of missed payments before they are given a notice of election in demand. This is the official foreclosure notice that is a public record. From there, they typically have 4 months to fix the situation before they go to the actual foreclosure sale. At the foreclosure sale, it is an auction, usually done by the county, where anybody can go in and buy it at auction. But we're trying to get in front of them, and we're trying to catch them before it goes to auction, because by then it's either goes to another investor or it goes back to the bank and becomes an REO, or a real estate owned property. So what is the cost of this list? It is free to pretty dang cheap. Since foreclosure requires public notification, you can find this list on the county websites and in some local newspapers. They just put the information out there. Why it's public is because they want anybody who has claim to the property or has a lien on the property to have notice before it goes to foreclosure. But what that means for you, the investor, is that everybody knows that it's going to foreclosure. Where to find this information? You could go to your county website, down to your local courthouse, or wherever foreclosure auctions are done in your state. The difficulty level, since it's a public notice, is very low. I could go online right now and look up your county and find all the foreclosures that are going to auction this month or next month, and so can everybody else in your city. And again, since the difficulty is very low, that means competition is very high. And it's not just competition from other investors. You're going to have competition from agents, loan officers, people wanting to restructure the loan. Anybody who sees that public notice can actually just reach out to them. So while it's not a bad list, it's going to be very popular. For this next list, I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I'm going to smash evictions, divorce, and bankruptcy all into one list. Not because they're the same thing, but because they share a ton of the same attributes. So why would you market to these lists? Obviously, evictions, this is a legal proceeding done by a landlord in order to kick out the tenant. Do you think that landlord might be tired? He might be tired of dealing with tenants like this who he needs to go down and pay to evict them? Of course, tired landlords are a really great deal source. Obviously, with a divorce, you have a couple that is splitting up, and typically one party can't afford the entire house even if they wanted to, so many times the property gets sold. So why not get in front of them before they need to sell? With bankruptcy, obviously these folks are going through some financial difficulty and trying to restructure their debts, and sometimes the house needs to be sold in order to do that. So getting in front of them would be a good way to help them and get a deal. A win-win. The cost of this list is going to vary widely across the nation. but I'm going to give it about 3 out of 5, if not 4 out of 5 on cost. This can be pretty dang expensive because it is a very hard to get niche list. So where to find these lists? You either need a lawyer friend or be able to go down to the courthouse to search through court records in order to find this kind of list. In some areas, I have heard that this kind of information is online on the county website or on the court website because each one of these has a court case tied to it. A divorce has a court case on it. Bankruptcy is the same, and so are eviction. The difficulty of this list is a solid 5 out of 5, at least for me in my area, in my experience, and my research. Not having direct access to court cases as a normal citizen means that these kind of properties and sellers are very hard to find. Since the difficulty is very high, that means your competition is going to be pretty low. Jumping through the hoops to get in front of these lists often pays off because your competition isn't willing to jump through all these hoops, and so you might be the only one talking to these folks. Next on our list has to do with taxes. These are tax delinquent and tax lien lists. These are sellers who have not paid their property tax. It could have been a few months, could have been a few years, depends on your county and your area when it will trigger and end up on a list like this. So the cost of this list is free to 1 out of 5 stars. Again, some of these lists can be found just on the county court website or the courthouse website. So finding them is usually pretty easy. I'm going to say 2 out of 5 difficulty. The competition level for this is gonna be pretty high since the difficulty is pretty low. I'm gonna give this one 4 out of 5 on competition level since it is a pretty well-known list and you can just go to the website and usually find the sellers. Next is probate and estate. Without getting too much into the nitty-gritty details, a probate or estate property is when somebody passes away and they have a property that they had owned. Now, either the family or the court is now going to decide what to do with the property. Let's say it's left to 3 kids and they all live out of state. They may not want anything to do with the property because they live 10 states away and it's going to be a big headache. Sometimes if there's no will, the county gets to decide what to do with the property. Or they let the estate handle what happens to the property so they can settle all the debts inside the estate. This is definitely a category that you want to get in front of because a lot of times the houses are just unwanted or they just have bad memories or bad stigma attached to them. So the cost for this list, this is going to be between 1 and 4 out of 5. And it depends on how you're going about to find these properties. Sometimes it's just as free as your time, up to paying $5 or $10 per record for a probate or estate property. So there's a big range there. So where can you find these types of properties? Well, there's a few different categories. The first one is obituaries. Yes, you're going through people's obituaries to see if they've passed away and then looking up the name to see if they actually own a property and then marketing to them from there. That's one way and it's not for everybody. Another will be the actual courthouse. Many courthouses let you pull the records of estate properties. There's also a list provider in my city where they'll charge you $5 per name in order to see the estate records. Another way would be to actually network with lawyers, with probate attorneys and estate attorneys, or they might be able to look up records for you. I'm not sure how that works because I'm not a lawyer. But getting in front of the gatekeeper of these type of properties is always a good idea. Look back at the networking episode. That brings us to difficulty. This is again a 1 to 4 out of 5 on difficulty. Just looking up obituaries and finding out the information from there is pretty easy. But if you're in a county or an area where this kind of information is very hard to get, you might be paying that $5 per record in order to even have a chance to market to these people. Some areas it's pretty easy, and I know some areas is very, very hard. Even with that range of difficulty, the competition level is still pretty high. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. And our last list is going to be the code violation list. Code violations is something in your city where they want to see the properties kept up to a certain standard. I've gotten code violations on fix and flips for having some trash blowing through the yard that got stuck in some bushes. I either had to go over there and clean up the trash, or they would have charged me $400 to have their crew come up and pick up some candy bar wrappers. But this also happens if the grass is too long, the fence is down, or anything that violates the conditions of the codes in your area. So this could be a really good list to get in front of because you know that the city has rolled out and they've said that the property is in pretty bad shape in one way or the other. It could be candy bar wrappers and bushes, or it could be a whole host of other things that would make the seller need to sell. So the cost for this list is generally pretty low. I'm going to give it 1 out of 5. Typically it's found at the courthouse or the county, but it's not that easy. It sounds easy to get because you just go down to the courthouse, but not a lot of cities will give out this information, which makes the difficulty level 5 out of 5 in most areas. Of course, somebody's going to be like, hey, Anson, I can go onto the website. Actually, they just send out this list for free. You don't even have to ask for it. They just send it every month, whether you want it or not, because my area is special. Well, good for you. Good on you. Because in most areas, it's a pretty difficult list to get. And if this list is difficult to get, that means that the competition level is going to be pretty dang low. I'm going to give this 1 out of 5. I'm going to give you a pro tip right now. And that is skip tracing. If you want better information for any of the lists that you get in this episode, if you want to find out the best phone numbers, the best email addresses, the best address, if you think about it, it's pretty scary how much information you can get for $1 or so. You might want to skip trace the list. There's a bunch of skip tracing providers. Just Google it. I don't want to recommend one over the other. It's always good to have the best information when you're spending marketing dollars, which we'll talk about in the next few episodes. One more pro tip, and that is stacking lists. One of the newfangled things that the kids are talking about these days is taking your lists and you're going to mash them all together and you're going to find out who shows up on multiple lists. This could be its own video, of course. They only gave me 10 episodes, so here we are. If you find somebody who is on 3 out of the 10 lists or 4 out of the 10 lists, do you think that they're going to be more likely to need to sell? That they're going to be more likely to need help? Of course. It's a way to supercharge your lists and not just find, hey, here's the lowest hanging fruit on an absentee list. But now we can find the absentee owner who has high equity, who is in pre-foreclosure, who's on a tax lien list, who also died last year and got a divorce after he died. I don't know. Do you think that that house is going to need some help? Of course. List stacking can be as easy as just going through Excel, and if you're an Excel wizard, going through there, figuring out how many times they show up on these different lists. And if you're not, you can either pay somebody to do it, or there are some services out there. Just Google list stacking real estate investing. You'll find something. We made it, and now it's time for our action steps. Action step number 1, you're going to want to get familiar with ListSource. Spend an hour a week for the next month or so looking around at how many properties are on the target lists that we talked about in this episode. And if you're comfortable with it and you're ready to rock and roll, you can start purchasing those lists if you want to. It's your money. You figure out how to spend it. Take the 3 to 4 lists that require county or courthouse information in your local area and do some thorough research for you. Obviously, what works for me in Denver may not work for you in your county in Alabama or wherever you are. So taking the time now to figure out how to find these lists and how much they're going to cost you is going to be huge. It's going to save you a lot of time in the future. And number 3, find 2 providers that do skip tracing and 1 to 2 ways to stack lists so that when you do start pulling down lists, you are ready to go. All right. And as promised, here is the code for 20% off at the BiggerPockets bookstore for the book, Finding and Funding Great Deals, who is the sponsor of Finding Great Deals series. Welcome. The next video in this series is all about driving for dollars. It's a literal masterclass from A to Z. And it's still one of my favorite lists of all time. So join us there. And as always, thanks for your time, for your attention. We'll see you next time. I forgot to give that code to somebody who contacted me today. I feel like a jerk.